Today on What's on Wealth, some companies are making decisions that can cost investors billions of dollars, and oftentimes retirees pay the price. My name is Matt Dean, and I'm joined today by my co-host Jeremy Zickafoos. Jeremy, why does corporate backlash matter so much to investors?
Well, at the end of the day, a lot of times when you're looking at associating risk in a company, you're thinking about recession or maybe a lawsuit of the company or just maybe a bad product. That's the risk that you typically are associating with buying this company's stock. But nowadays, especially with social media being so prevalent, backlashes and boycotts can happen very quickly. And we're actually seeing now companies are losing value, not because they're making some product change or they're, in a lawsuit with some other company. Their price changes because they might take a political stance or have some kind of agenda associated with it that maybe doesn't quite align with the audience.
Jeremy, we're going to start with our first example, one that's near and dear to your heart as a Star Wars fan, the Walt Disney Company.
Yes. Unfortunately, there's been a lot of different controversies recently, not only by the actual product that they're putting out with the different messaging. I mean, they've been traditionally a family-friendly entertainment service. And over time, as they've been putting in some different, the Force is female or some different political leanings towards LGBTQ and things like that in whether it's Marvel or Indiana Jones, or even if you look at the most recent Snow White film, it's very different than the original one, and people are noticing. They're not going to the theater as much, and it's causing a lot of those films like that, the Snow White film recently, to lose hundreds of millions of dollars. But one of the big controversies that we actually saw, at least nationally on a governmental level, was what happened in Florida with DeSantis.
Yeah, let me tell you about DeSantis. When Disney started taking some of these more hard-lined cultural and political positions, Ron DeSantis essentially told Disney, we're not going to subsidize your bad takes with some tax breaks. So, Jeremy, whenever Disney started rolling out some of these initiatives with DEI and inclusion, what happened to their stock price?
There's times where it has lost 40% since then. Oh my goodness, that is huge. And at the end of the day, it's primarily because of these different things that they've started to go down a separate path. They had this audience where it was always this family-friendly type content, where especially here in the Bible Belt where we are, there's a lot of people that are questioning or completely abandoning the whole company because they don't believe it aligns with their family's ideologies, or they don't actually believe it is currently family-friendly.
All right, Jeremy, next controversy, Target Corporation.
Target,
indeed.
Okay.
Now, think back to a couple summers ago. There was a lot of hoopla around the store offering different swimsuit options for certain consumers, and a lot of people didn't like that. Lots of backlash around social media, and in response, in subsequent shopping seasons, Target has rolled back a lot of messaging around Pride Month and products that cater to that consumer base.
And this caused a huge financial problem for Target because their net earnings went down about 11%, and the stock price during that controversy went down almost 30%, which, that's huge. That's a third of it just gone because of this. Even though the product is the same, they sell swimwear for everyone, but because they're specifically tagging it with, it's for transgenders or specifically kids in this instance, it caused a lot of people to say, well, gosh, I don't agree with that, so I'm not going to shop there. It has nothing to do with the actual product they're putting out, but because of the agenda, because of the messaging around it, which caused this volatility and potentially a huge loss in your portfolio.
Yeah, isn't it an interesting thing where we're seeing more and more shoppers, more and more consumers shop on the basis of their beliefs, their cultural leanings, rather than whether it's the best product available out there?
Correct. That's how it used to be. It was who's selling the best pizza, who's selling the best whatever. I want to go there and buy that because I just want a good pizza. Where now it's, well, which pizza company aligns with my political beliefs? Because we've become so bifurcated, and basically, it creates such a problem that we actually have companies that are spurring up out of nowhere solely because of a political belief, not because of the underlying product. The biggest one that comes to mind for me is actually the whole controversy with Gillette.
Yeah.
Yeah, because Gillette, the best a man can get, and then they came out with a whole ad campaign targeting toxic masculinity and basically talking down to their main demographic. Well, that caused some other companies to come up and say, hey, let's make razors. They may not be better than Gillette, but they might agree or align more with your beliefs. You want to talk about that?
Yeah. So in the case of Gillette, this case study is really, really interesting. One example of a consequence around corporate messaging is not necessarily revenues decreasing or a stock price, but it can create an opportunity for competitors to enter the marketplace and take some of your share of that marketplace, which then leads to revenues dropping. So Daily Wire is a big media and political commentating company. They do news. They saw the backlash that Gillette received and said, well, there's a lot of shoppers that need razors that don't agree with Gillette's stance, so we are starting a razor company. So now you're seeing consumers shop with conservative leading companies versus progressive leading companies, and it has nothing to do with razors anymore.
Yeah, that's so wild. And even the biggest one I think that I can think of recently is the big controversy with Bud Light. Mm-hmm. I mean, it was America's #1 beer, the top beer company, but it has now been dethroned all because of a controversy. Their product is the same. It has not changed.
Yeah. For those of you living under a rock, Bud Light saw great drops in their sales following a partnership with a social media influencer by the name of Dylan Mulvaney. Mm-hmm. Dylan's mug was on a can of Bud Light, and that led to a lot of backlash on the internet. Kid Rock got involved and used a machine gun to shoot up many cases of Bud Light beer.
Yeah.
And since then, Bud Light has stepped back, kind of reeled in some of this messaging in the hopes that they can softly apologize and get a lot of their consumer base back. But we haven't seen that really return to normal levels, at least in Bud Light's case. So Bud Light's no longer America's #1 beer. It is now Modelo.
That's very, very interesting. And all because of a controversy, not because their product got worse.
That's exactly right.
Interesting.
That's exactly right. Now, another twist of a corporate backlash event relates to Nike and Colin Kaepernick. Mm-hmm. So this idea of taking a knee during the national anthem, a lot of people felt that as a bad taste being left in their mouth when they're just trying to watch football and enjoy a good game. Now, Nike's stock price didn't do so well in times following that backlash, but here's an interesting twist for you. One of the things that was observed in Nike's sales after the Colin Kaepernick incident was actually an increase in some of their shoes. Do you know about this?
Yeah, it increased just because a company takes a stance doesn't necessarily mean that as a whole everyone's going to just start tanking that company. In this example, a lot of people agreed with it, thought that Colin was making a good argument, and so they actually went out in support of the company, bought more Nike shoes, even though there was, on the other side, there was a lot of people who were posting videos on YouTube of them burning their Nike shoes or their other things and saying, I'm never buying Nike again. It can go both ways.
Jeremy, here's an important takeaway, in my opinion. Is it a bad thing to invest in big publicly traded companies that take a stance every once in a while, as they do from time to time? No. But having too much concentration, too much investment in one company or another can create some problems. If you're riding one horse and it drops by 30%, that can create a big problem. So one solution could be diversification.
Yeah, and especially when you consider retirement. Mm-hmm. If all your eggs are in one basket and right when you retire just happens to be when one of these crazy controversies comes out, yeah. That is a new risk to retirees, a new volatility that needs to be factored in, and I think which makes diversification an even bigger importance because it's no longer just about the product; it's also about the cultural perception of that company and if it is in line with Americans' hearts and beliefs.
If you have concerns about some of these stock market kinds of risks that Jeremy and I are talking about, and maybe you don't have any protected principal in your retirement savings, money that's sheltered away from stock market kinds of risks, give us a call at 417-882-1726. Jeremy and I would be happy to help to make sure that some of your retirement savings are protected. Follow the link in the description below so that you can get an appointment at your convenience.
Let us know what you think about these different controversies and how they impacted your portfolio down in the comments below. We'll see you on What's on Wealth next time.